Reporters Without Borders was founded in 1985 to cover areas and countries that were largely ignored by the mainstream media. Our mandate evolved from a response to a plea from another global organization, Doctors Without Borders and Médecins Sans Frontières, who are helping people in conflict zones primarily in Africa. We answered the call for more news coverage and started working to help Western journalists cover conflicts, but primarily we aim to assist local journalists who didn't have the resources of large media organizations to do their job safely. I'm proud to tell you we've built the strongest network of local correspondents of any of the watchdog organizations. We have 150 correspondents working in 130 countries with 10 national offices in France, Germany, Tunisia, Libya, and the US. Our objective is to facilitate the free flow and freedom of information and to assist the often unknown citizens who assume huge risks to communicate what they've learned. We provide concrete assistance in emergency situations, such as legal and medical assistance, and when they're jailed or censored, we are their voices. We advocate on their behalf for their release and seek to reform media law in their countries. We provide them with online tools so that they can continue to gather and circulate information. We are unique in that we have a highly professional network of 150 correspondents on the ground in 130 countries. This means that we can actively monitor situations in real time in major population hubs and in isolated, difficult-to-reach places. We are a world authority on press freedom, and organizations such as the UN and UNESCO, where we have consultative status, regularly seek our input. Reporters Without Borders has been very effective at obtaining sustainable changes regarding freedom of information all across the world. We investigate and expose freedom of information violations, we produce specific media law reform recommendations, and we protect individuals who seek to disclose information that others want to remain hidden. We alternate between public intervention and behind-the-scenes actions, and we react quickly to emergency situations. For example, following the 2010 Haiti earthquake, we built a media center in Port-au-Prince open to all journalists, regardless of affiliation, to help the news get out. We tend to favor qualitative measures, such as legislative improvement, independence of the media, and levels of self-censorship. These indicators are fundamental to our annual World Index, which ranks 179 countries according to their freedom of information situation. We also take into account the number of journalists released from prison as quantitative aspects. We have a full-time statistician working on our annual World Index, which is used by media, human rights organizations, and governments all over the world. Many people think that our organization is here just to serve reporters, but we exist to serve all citizens worldwide. In the US, we know how highly we value our right to freedom of speech and freedom of the press, because it's part of our Constitution. We understand that these freedoms are fundamental to the public and don't just benefit reporters. Most people don't know the extent to which we give active support and resources to people on the ground in war zones and in countries with repressive regimes where you can go to jail or worse for saying the wrong thing. Since 1985, we've secured the release of hundreds of journalists. In many of these situations, we've also helped them flee the country so they can avoid prosecution or even death. In this regard, we've saved hundreds of lives. In 2006, the UN Security Council unanimously adopted Resolution 1738 to ensure the protection of journalists in armed conflicts. We're proud to say that this resolution was drafted by our legal department. With the explosion of social media, the nature of how information is gathered and circulated has completely changed. This environment brings new opportunities and challenges for traditional journalists, but also for the citizen journalists, bloggers, and online news providers. As a result, we've extended our mandate from the defense of freedom of the press to defense of freedom of all information. More than 10 years ago, we opened our Internet desk to cover these emerging issues. Today, our expertise on Internet filtering, encryption, cybersecurity, and surveillance has become more useful than ever in repressive regimes as well as in democratic countries. In recent years, we've witnessed a dramatic increase in violence against those who report or threaten to report information. Journalists, photojournalists, bloggers, citizen journalists are all increasingly targeted by oppressive governments, drug cartels, and militias. With more resources, we can support many more independent local media outlets, increasing the flow of information from those sources and encouraging others to become sources. In part due to increased violence against journalists, and in part due to our own growth, we need more people. One of our objectives is to develop a stronger presence in Asia by opening an office in Hong Kong. We also intend to increase our presence within the United Nations in Geneva and in New York. Another goal is to build out our legal department so we can draft recommendations, push for legal standards and their adoption, and actively defend and assist sources of information in their fight against intimidation and censorship.